Howdy, folks. Decided to go fishing again today. Uh, and only thing I could really think to yap about is that, well, I guess there's a couple of things. Getting quite chilly out. So, nice and bundled up now. What's the temperature like wherever you guys are? Let me know that. But then, I guess the other thing was it yesterday now? I think it was yesterday. Watching SpaceX and Starship launching and then them catching the booster and Starship, landing, yeah, in the ocean and blowing up, but they say it landed exactly where they wanted it to, just like the booster landed right where they wanted to last time when they had it landing in the ocean. So I think that's pretty promising for their next test, whenever that might be. But yeah, I just thought it was really neat, like seeing seeing the launch is cool because, like, I think Starship, along with Super Heavy, is like the biggest rocket that's ever been launched, I believe. So it's just kind of crazy watching something that big, lift off into space. Well, I guess according to some people, it didn't technically make it into space. But I don't know about that. But either way, something that big being launched into the air is just kind of wild. But then watching Super Heavy come back in, it's like, was just wild. Like watching the telemetry there on like the SpaceX, what's the word? Live stream of the whole thing. Super Heavy was doing like a little over 1,200 kilometers an hour before it threw on the brakes there at the end. And that comes out to like 750-ish miles an hour. And then, in a matter of seconds, it comes to a nice buttery stop there in the what do they call them? The mantis arms, the catch arms. Just like wild. Watching SpaceX do its initial recoveries of like the Falcon boosters was already wicked cool. Especially comparing it to how NASA and, its army of corporate welfare queens that have been quote unquote working on space tech for the last, 50 years, but they haven't made any advancements really since, we put men on the moon back in what, the 70s. So it's just like, what if these people, what if NASA and like all the other big aerospace companies been doing for the last 50 years other than just take taxpayer money? And I can't say that they didn't they did nothing, because they did launch probes and do other scientific research. But, you know, the shuttles were a thing, but from what I heard, it's like they were kind of flawed right from the get-go. And I don't know. And then they just got canceled. You know, no more using those. And what has there been since, you know? So it's just kind of crazy seeing all the advancements that SpaceX has made in just like the past, 10 years? Compared to everything that came before. And as far as I know, they're doing it with like way less money. Or at least they're making a lot more progress for how much money is being thrown at their programs. So, I don't know. I might be wrong on that one, but it's just so refreshing. And it definitely makes me feel like, oh yeah, we're in the future now. Because being able to actually see progress being made, not decade to decade, but literally month to month. They're making new advancements on the Raptor engines and all the other different systems that go into Starship and just everything that SpaceX does. Now, I guess hopefully this would cause the other companies, you know, Boeing, that's a whole other can of worms, but I don't know who else does, but like Lockheed Martin, I think, does stuff. And all those other contractors, hopefully what SpaceX is doing would drive them to actually try. But I have a feeling, though, that that's not going to happen because, again, they've spent 50 years making billions of dollars doing essentially nothing. You know, they haven't, like, what is it? Artemis is like, no, is it Artemis? Whatever the new launch system they have going. Oh, no, Artemis is the name of the holy fuck. Is the name of the program to get back to the moon. But whatever that launch system is called again, you know, it's been in development for 20 years, and it's billions of dollars over budget, years and years behind schedule, and they only just did their like first test launch this year, I think. Meanwhile, SpaceX's, you know, developed Starship and started the testing process and made a fairly functional and very innovative launch system in way, way less time. So, yeah, it's just kind of mind-boggling. And I remember watching one video that talked about like why NASA operates the way it does, where they do all this planning and simulation so that they can try and get their launches right. the first time or something like that. Because supposedly the taxpayers would be angry if they just saw their money go up in flames. But it's like, I do see people that criticize SpaceX for like blowing up rockets while they're testing stuff. But to be honest, those people are probably bots, first of all. But then also, if they are real people, they seem to think that just because a project didn't work perfectly the first time, that it was a complete failure, even though it's very plainly obvious that it isn't, because every single time that SpaceX goes and launches a rocket and it does blow up or something goes wrong, they're immediately fixing that problem and making the next version better. And they, as far as I know, haven't ever made like the same mistake, at least same dramatic mistake, 2 times in a row. So it's like, yeah, I mean, that's perfectly fine, in my opinion, at least, that, oh yeah, they blew up this rocket, whoop-de-doo, but now look, the next one that they're launching, a few months later, didn't blow up, and it did do way better than the last one. So they just keep on learning and improving. And some people seem to think that, oh, no, that's not allowed. You have to be perfect the first time. But it's also probably those people that never end up doing much of anything other than criticizing other people, because they're never going to be perfect the first time they do something. So why would they try then, right? According to their logic. But I might be off base on that one. Still pretty wild, though. Just seeing like the raw ingenuity going into launching stuff into space in a functional way. Because I do remember watching some videos from a few other creators talking about other ways different companies are currently trying, I was going to say have tried, but are currently trying to launch stuff into space. And it's like, I mean, yeah, theoretically, this idea of theirs works. Like the one I've seen is having like a rocket with the payload on the end, at the end of an arm, and they just spin the thing in a centrifuge, like what would it be? A vertically tilted centrifuge, and then launching that rocket out of there after it gets accelerated to some insane speed. But well, so far they haven't been able to do anything big with that. And then B, I'm pretty sure that like the G-forces for everything involved there would like turn a human to mush. I don't remember the details on that one, but it's definitely, at least as far as I know, not viable for much other than like launching very tiny payloads into space, maybe like some tiny satellites. I don't know how big they could theoretically get. But it is something. I do kind of wish that the whole space elevator thing could work. I don't know if people have like disproven that it could work or if it's still theoretically viable. But I've always been enamored with the idea of like space elevators. I think ever since I watched like I think it was like Gundam 00 or maybe it was a different series. But like seeing the space elevators there that go up to like either a ring around like some sort of ring station around the planet or just different like stations up there. It's like that would be really cool. And then I remember seeing one, I guess it was probably like a theory video that the space elevators would go up and down being like pushed by like lasers or something. So that's kind of cool. You know, because so I guess the whole thing that some people have against rockets is that they think that like the fuels that get burned are like polluting or something, which I don't know about that really. So they want like an energy based way of doing it, but that's like not really possible as far as I know. Other than like this video that I saw that's I think proposed using lasers to move like the space elevators up and down, but I don't know whether that's actually, you know, viable or not, assuming that space elevators are viable to begin with. But yeah, that would definitely solve the issues of or one of the limitations that we have with like current space travel and that we have to use so much energy and resources just to leave the atmosphere. So if we could just have stations like outside of the atmosphere or outside most of it at the very least, and then like have like space docks to build ships out there that don't have to worry about going through the atmosphere. Like I feel like we could make some real big leaps and bounds in starfaring technology, so to speak. But that's definitely well, I was going to say a far future thing, but then again, if Starship and whatever other similar developments that SpaceX might come up with, if those are as successful as they're hoped to be, and they can launch these vehicles as quickly as they hope, I suppose that would be like the next best thing to space elevators. Because there's this one channel that I watch occasionally. Scott Manley, I believe is the name, where he does like recaps of like an entire week of launches from around the world. And the number of times that there's multiple SpaceX launches in that week. Well, it's basically every week. is that there's, at least one, and usually there's like 3 or 4 launches. And then like the next closest competition, for number of launches is like China. But that's, an entire country and all its resources against one private company. And even then, they don't launch nearly as many times as SpaceX does. So if they can start launching Starships at the same or similar rate that they launch, Falcon 9s, or is Falcon Heavy still a thing? I think so. So if they can launch Starships at the same rate they launch their smaller rockets, well, that would just kind of be insane, and they could get so much material up into space and then start, building not just like onto the ISS, but whole new stations from which, maybe they could start building ships out there. So there's a lot of potential in the surprisingly near future, assuming things keep on going the way they're going. And I just think it's all really cool. I guess that's the the whole point of the video, is just that I am in awe of how much progress is being made towards expanding into space. Like some manner of moon base seems a lot more viable now than it did, when I was a kid. And then, as Elon wants to do, some putting humans on Mars sounds like not even that far-fetched now, which is just really cool. Literally living in the future. All the retro thoughts from like the 50s and whatnot. It's like, oh yeah, we're gonna be on the moon and Mars. It's like, well, we're finally getting there, it seems. And thanks to the memery of Elon, the ships that we're going to do it in are going to look like those spaceships from those early sci-fi movies, dramas, shows, all that good stuff. It's like, that's what they thought they were going to look like then in their imagination, and now it's potentially coming to be, which again is just really cool and really neat. I don't remember if there was anything else I wanted to ramble about. I feel like there was, but I cannot recall off the top of my head, which seems to be the case for most of the times that I come to record something. Let me see if I can remind myself. No. I did a quick scroll of one of my Discord servers to see if I could see any of the memes to remind myself of what else there was I wanted to yap about, but nothing's really jumping out at me. So I guess I'll just go with a what do you guys think of SpaceX, Starship, all the progress that's being made there? How long do you think it's going to be before we're back on the moon? And what are your thoughts on space elevators? I wonder who else thinks that they're pretty rad and whether they're viable or not. Yeah. Oh, perfect. I do get to catch a fish to end things off on. Nice. Alrighty. Well, I will catch you guys in the next one. Take care. Bye.